Dear thinkers and participants, welcome to the second part of this session where we would talk about intercultural communication and communicating across the cultures between different kinds of backgrounds and different kinds of identities. So, identity is also culturally related. Culture is the relationship between the I and the other, the first person and the other related individuals. There is no identity without the other. Every identity is reflected in the mirror of another individual, of another tribe, of another ethnicity, of another race. So, in a way, we human beings are correlated to each other. Individually, we are nothing, but in communication, in connection, and association to each other, we give ourselves the kind of assumed identities. So, when talking about the on identity, we also have to consider the foreign identity. When we take into consideration our own identity, our own establishment, our own individuality, likewise, there are some foreigners, some other people who do not belong to our inner group, rather, they belong to some outer group, so they too have some kind of identities. While doing so, one important factor is the ethnocentrism. Ethnocentrism is the belief that one's own cultural background is superior to that of the other. So, this is the kind of belief where people assume that if they are white, they are superior to blacks. If they are belonging to one particular nation, they have the right to consider themselves as some kind of crown of creation, some kind of superhuman being, while all the other people belonging to other part of this dichotomy are considered or relegated to the status of marginalization, and this kind of status is prevalent between the European and African or Asian background, where Eurocentrism or logocentrism is considered to be higher in status, royal in blood, and some kind of privileged individual or background or community, whereas the people of another remote, far flung area are considered to be non privileged or sometime relegated to the status of inhuman, or others that do not have the equal right to existence. So when this is the situation, there occurs stereotyping that is predicting the behavior based on particular traits of the group or the class. So, stereotyping is giving some kind of ridiculous societal traits to an individual, such as Islamophobia, you have seen in this world after post 9/11, or there are many people who consider people of African backgrounds to be poor, uneducated, unhygienic, or some such type of behaviors have been propagated by the European writer of the white background. So, to overcome ethnocentrism, acknowledge distinction that people are different and distinct. Each color has a different identity and a different kind of recognition. Avoid assumptions. We need to avoid assumption about various culture like Hazara, Mushkil Guzara, or there are many other kinds of stereotyping that have been created in the society against people of various background, for instance, Kashmir or Gujarat or Sindhi or Pashtun or Punjabi. So these are various individuals coming from various backgrounds, have their own authentic individual traits which needs to be recognized in order to give them the kind of right to live and right to survive. Therefore, we need to avoid assumptions and also we need to avoid judgments. Passing judgments is not our prerogative. Rather, we should be very careful while passing judgment about another person coming from a particular background. That background that also is extremely important for that particular person. But people sometimes in the cities, they have these kinds of assumptions where they consider themselves as higher in ranks, and the people coming from other far-flung areas to be lower in ranks. So they are a kind of addicted to some kind of superiority complex. So stereotypes often reflect the difference in socio-economic status, religion, or dialect. It is important to suspend judgment, avoid misconceptions, narrow perspectives, and immature reactions. Stereotypes often maintain a grain of truth but cannot characterize an entire culture. Your experiences, bad experiences with one individual, doesn't mean that the whole group coming from that particular background would behave in a similar manner. That one individual might have not behaved very well according to your expectation, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the whole community, whole tribe is following the similar type of traits. So getting the whole picture of the culture needs active participation, where you need to go to that particular area, where you need to visit that particular place, where you need to live with those people, and you need to do some kind of research upon that is related to ethnographic research, where you are part of that particular community. So there are some time behaviors, there are some kind of concept. One concept is monochronic culture, which is rigid culture, where they do one thing at a time and they have these kinds of appointments that are inescapable. Punctuality is the norm of the day, time is money. Where there are some polychronic cultures which are called as fluid culture, do several things at the same time, and time engagements are more flexible. Work is considered less important than being polite, nice, helpful with other people. Time is opportunity. So these culture differ in their basic instincts or their basic features from each other. So there are many translations in various cultures that you can have a look at them, and there are various cultural meaning, and such as dairy association, where English say got milk, and translation of Mexican would be, are you lactating? So you can have a look at other examples of that. Pepsi Cola, come alive with Pepsi Cola. Pepsi brings your ancestors back from the grave. This is a kind of Chinese proverb or Chinese understanding about that particular translation. So these market globalization have translated various things which are factually incorrect, and that these type of thinking leads to a kind of stereotyping of a group or of a nation or of a culture. So overcoming these behaviors, breaking through ESL barriers, we need to avoid using slangs, idioms. We need to pay attention to the local accents and pronunciation. We need to be aware about vocal variation, and then we need to learn a foreign language. We need to use an intermediary or translator, offer language training program. So in a way, these types of behaviors can help us in overcoming that type of cultural barriers. So with a partner list, all the tips you can think of or form a kind of successful intercultural business communication. There you can develop these types of understanding, where you need to assume, differences, take responsibility, withhold judgment, show respect, empathize, tolerate ambiguity, recognize bias, learn patience and persistence, be flexible, emphasize some common grounds, send clear messages, deal with the individual, know when to be direct, avoid the superficial, and evaluate feedback to assess the hypothesis. And then we should use plain English, we should use clear English, we should avoid slang and idioms, we need to be brief, we need to use short paragraphs, and we need to use transitional elements in order to communicate well. So here we need to improve our oral communication, where we should try to eliminate noise, look for the feedback, rephrase sentences when necessary, and then clarify your true intent with repetition and example. Don't talk down to the other person. And then where we need to be objective and accurate while using language, we need to listen very carefully and patiently, adapt to the conversation and style of the other person, and clarify what will happen next. So where we need to understand each other. Likewise, the verse says, चोट लगे किसी को तो तड़पे हैं हम, सारे जहां का दर्द हमारे जिगर में है. So with this note, I would conclude that in today's session, we talked about stereotypical behavior, we talked about ethnocentrism, we talked about stereotyping, and we talked about identity issues, and of those identity issues which need to be very clear, and we need to use clear language, and we need to show respect, and we need to understand each other for greater goods and for talking interculturally with each other. So with this note, I am going to stop this particular session. If you have any question or query, do let me know in the comment section, and I would be happy to address. And if there are some suggestions, also you are welcome to suggest any kind of changes. So thank you for your patience and for your participation. Stay blessed and stay tuned. Allah Hafiz.